Hi everyone, Emily here again today. I know you haven't seen much of my altars recently, but they haven't been inspired to make a video so far. If you would like to see any of them, please just pop it in the comments and I'll be happy to do a video. So today's video is going to be covering some things that I've talked about in the past. I think I spoke about it in a video with my husband Luke, but quite old now, and I want to be more specific about it, less of a big ramble for 20 minutes. So what I want to talk about is sort of where my altars came from. Not what caused them, because even we still don't know that, but sort of how I first started knowing about them and where I sort of got the idea that I had multiple personalities from. So, basically from a young age I've always been quite sort of creative minded. Me and my sister would role play together. She would tell me sort of stories and I would sort of add parts to that, you know, common of children. But as I grew up, I was still fairly creative minded. Didn't have or didn't know about white altars then. But it was early in secondary school, so I think that's about 12 years old. I'll double check that. Yeah, so about 11 to 12 years old. Early secondary school, I had a good friend who was interested in ghosts and spirits and Ouija board. And apologies if this makes anybody uncomfortable. I know it's sort of like a topic to be careful with, but I was really curious and I really wanted to know more. I was very, very skeptical. I've always been a skeptical person, especially around things like religion or spirituality. I kind of want more evidence sort of thing. So I was very, very skeptical, but I went to her house and we did Ouija board, and I think since then my brain sort of had an outlet for my altars. So my altars were able, I could sort of process them in my mind. I could sort of say, yes, but they're spirits. So it's sort of like an out, if that makes sense. So I could say I have spirits in my head, like I'm a host for spirits. And that was more acceptable to my brain and more palatable than just having multiple personalities, because with that there's no reason for it. Whereas with this I could say it's spirits, it's long dead people who are just floating around, and I'm able to host them, which at that age made me feel kind of special. But also it became quite difficult because my first spirit or altar was Jane, who has since evolved to be Lucy. But at the time, Jane was very angry in a way because she wanted to front, she wanted to come out and have time for herself. But obviously I wouldn't let that happen a lot of the time, and she thought it was unfair and she wanted time out, and I suppose she didn't also like being considered a spirit, like a dead person, because I mean she is an altar. But again, at the time we didn't have the mental understanding of that yet. But it became difficult because she would be so angry and upset that she would cause me to do things that were not productive to myself. She would force front and hurt me, and that was a very, 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 very long time ago now. Like I say, I was about 13, 14, and I was also suffering from my own depression at the time. But that sort of bothered me, and I couldn't really properly remember what happened when she was out. So I thought, look, this isn't working. she's clearly unhappy. I should try and put her to rest, because I again believed she was a dead spirit, and I thought if I make her happy and she gets to do what she wants to do, then she will move on, and then I won't have to struggle with this anymore. So I did that. I tried to make her happy, and that worked a lot better than trying to push her away. Being nice to her, working with her, giving her some time out, letting her meet my then boyfriend at the time, all these kind of things helped a lot. She was still a bit irritated at times, but for the most part that really helped. The first time that she ever actually fronted at all was I was in the car with my ex at the time, and she sort of just turned to him and said, "I hate you." And at the time I definitely didn't hate him, so that's how I knew it was somebody else, and that was the first time that anybody actually took control of me. So that's kind of where it started. So from then I realised I could let her out, take control of the body fully and things like that. So that was good. And also I let her speak to Luke, who was my best friend at the time. He is now my husband. And when I split with my ex and went to university, I only had long distance communication with Luke. And so because I wasn't in person as much, and so our relationship wasn't like as physical, it wasn't as like in person, we did a lot of communicating through Skype or like phone calls or whatever, and this gave my other alters time to express themselves. So almost like role play, me and Luke would let my spirits interact with him. We'd close our eyes and we would pretend that he was stood next to me and that my alters could interact with him. Then spirits. Sorry if this is a bit confusing. I used to think they were called spirits. So at the time, we thought spirits, and we wanted them to be happy, so we would let them interact with Luke in an imaginary space, which later on kind of became my inner world. So that's kind of where they started showing themselves more. So I started getting more alters. They've since changed their names, but Autumn used to be Beth, she showed up then. Pepper used to be Rin, and Peter used to be Len. So quite a few of them have been around since early university days. So then university got really, really stressful, and Luke didn't want to interact with them anymore. He was really stressed about like university and everything was going on. I was also dating somebody else online, and everything was getting really messy, and we were like, look, we don't even believe in spirits anymore. Spirits are like, what, dead people? People don't come back after they're dead. We went through a period of time of absolutely not believing in them. And I pushed them away really hard and wouldn't let them out, didn't want anything to do with them, was like, this is stupid. Get on with your life. Stop living in a fantasy. Which, of course, isn't possible, really. So they were always there, but very much shoved backwards. And it made me really depressed. It was like the worst year of my life that year when I just shoved them away. And they were there all the time, but I pretended they weren't. And obviously that made everybody in the system unhappy, so not a good thing to do, not a good time. If you do think you have DID, embrace your alters and love them, even if they are problematic. Just try and give them as much credit and understanding as you can. That's the best advice I could give anybody. So yeah, then a while later, I couldn't push them away anymore. I knew they were a thing, and I started doing research, and found out about DID and OSDD, which is what I thought it was at the time. which is otherwise specified dissociative disorder, which is not DID but very similar. Editing Emily here. I just wanted to let you guys know that this is why I started my channel, was because when I was going through learning about DID and trying to understand what was going on in my mind, I saw a lot of DID stuff that I couldn't necessarily relate to because of the whole dissociative amnesia side of things, which I didn't really feel that I suffered with the same as other people. So I wanted to start this channel so that I can let other people know that you can have DID and it look different from other people's, because I think that back then that would have helped me to understand and accept and feel more included, because as it was, I kept telling myself I don't have DID because it doesn't look like how these people have DID. So yeah, I just thought it might be interesting for you guys to hear why I started my channel, and this is exactly why. And that's kind of where I sort of started reintroducing myself to them again. I was still with Luke and this other guy, and they both were welcome to talking to my alters again after a certain amount of time. And that's kind of where they started coming back a long time later, but they showed themselves back up, and we were more embracing again. We stopped calling them spirits, started calling them alternate personalities or alters, and yeah, started research into finding out what DID was, really. So that's kind of the story of how they came to be. Hopefully it's a little bit shorter than the one I did with Luke, because that was like a full story. So if you do want more detail, and from Luke's side of the story as well, I will link that up here. But yeah, that's kind of where they came from. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. If you'd like to hear from any of my other alters, please put that in the comments. But yeah, that's where they came from. Thought they were spirits, shunned them away. They came back again, eventually. And some of them, here's the other thing, is that before we decided that spirits weren't a thing, they had names, but then when they came back later on, they wanted to change their name because it had been such a struggle and a traumatic time, and they had been shoved away so much that when they came back, they didn't want to be that person anymore. They wanted to be a new person, be themselves. They weren't spirits. They didn't want to be known as spirits. They wanted to be who they really were. So a couple of them had new names. So Felix used to be called Alex, Autumn was Beth, Peter was Len, but also maybe sometimes Ren was Len. So that line is a bit blurry, weren't exactly sure who was who at the time. And Pepper was Rin. I can't think of any other examples at the moment, but that is a thing. So sometimes alters might want to change their names, they might develop more as a person, and I am really proud of who they are now. They're all individual people, and it's beautiful to see. So I'm really proud of them. And so yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope that was a little bit interesting. And I hope that you guys are doing really well. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye guys!